Good afternoon, everybody. What a glorious day, huh, for a ribbon cutting. You couldn't dial up the weather any better. Welcome to Paca House, home to 92 men and women here in Baltimore. And we're just so pleased to have you here today and celebrate our community's support and our story of Paca House and its service to the community. My name is Russ Snyder. I'm the President and CEO of Volunteers America Chesapeake and the Carolinas. So for those of you who don't know the Volunteers Americanisms, we represent Maryland, Virginia, D.C., North and South Carolina now. That's our territory. We serve about 10,000 men, women, and children in that entire region with about 800 foot soldiers, as I call them, doing the work every day and doing God's work every day out there. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you all of you that are up here that are going to speak for taking your time out. So I'm just going to frame out the vision we had over the second cycle of tax credits has been awarded to this property called Paca House. First in 1994, and the vision there was to take a 5-story warehouse, this building on this side, plus the firehouse on that side, and make it into one building by putting a breezeway through it and making it into affordable housing for low-income individuals. That rehab has now gone on, that rehab and that construction, it brought us to this point in over 15 years during the tax credit compliance period. But in that time frame, we served hundreds of men and women that had low levels of income to support themselves. They were homeless. They're out on the streets here in Baltimore. And we've given them that hope for a better life by living in these apartments here at Paca House. The residents that have lived here over the years, if you talk to any one of them, would say what a life change this was for them and has been for them. By giving them a home, changing their lives, giving them the supports they need so they're out in the community living on their own now, living independently in different other housing. Paca House story, I will say this over and over again, and all we do is about giving people hope. Giving people hope by getting them in a house, giving them hope with the supports, and allowing them to thrive in the communities where they live. So the new Paca House, which is where we're here celebrating today, started in 2012. And if those of you that haven't been through the low-income housing tax credit process, it's a process, and it took us about 9 years to get to where we are today. But that said, thanks to our community, our partners, Somerset Development Company, who are up here in the front row, and they'll recognize themselves a little later, and new community partners, in our collective vision together with the city, with the state, with the Department of Veteran Affairs, all came together, and we made this beautiful place called Paca House. And we're proud to share the next chapter of Paca House's hope story here in Baltimore. We opened up recently in 2019, in November 2019, and we now have 92 apartments in a veteran-preferred property. We moved from the old model of single-room efficiencies, or SRO, single-room occupancy, to the new model, which we'll share with you. There's 92 units now. And it's a veteran-preferred property here. There's 41 bedrooms and 41 efficiency apartments. 19 of these apartments received a subsidy from the city of Baltimore to be veteran only. And we're currently serving around 40 veterans at this locations. We have doubled the square footage of this building to around 79,000 square feet, and it's added more space for the units. And somebody asked me earlier, what was it like before? It was dark, it was old, and when you go through 15 years, it was ready for a facelift, and it sure got a facelift. And now it's light, there's a lot of room, and the residents here are absolutely loving it. The building has service to the residents here are case management. So many of the folks that come here were formerly chronically homeless. They might have an addiction, they might have some form of behavioral health challenge or mental illness, and our team works diligently around the clock to make sure that they get the appropriate support so they're successful in the community. We have plans here for a second workforce development site in the city. We have one on the east side of town called VOA Works, where we're serving men and women that are formerly incarcerated and helping them get jobs and getting ready to get jobs. And so part 2 or phase 2 is to open it up in this community space here. Paca House is also on the forefront of the redevelopment of Lexington Market, as you saw out there. So we're really excited to be here. The Pack House story is one of hope and will continue to serve the residents and the community. And again, thank you for being here. I want to give some thanks now to the people that really did the work. And Bill and I were talking earlier about it take hours to get here, and we don't have hours, but we had hundreds of people involved in this effort over the 9-year period. My thanks, and if I don't mention your organization, forgive me. But thank you to the state of Maryland for their contributions, and all your folks, which did incredible work at the Department of Housing and Community Development. For the City of Baltimore Housing Authority and the City Finance Office, very creative, incredibly talented folks. The Mayor's Office on Human Services, the U.S. Veterans Administration, Capital One Bank, Boston Financial, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, who supplied funding, Fulton Bank, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation provided a large capital grant for this project, the Home Depot Foundation, LISC, Bring the Home Initiatives, Northrop Grumman City Community Development, the Volunteers American National Office for their support. As you can tell, it took an army and a village to make this work, and it came out, I think, in flying colors. And then finally to our team, our partnership teams, so Somerset Development and new community partners, Bill, Nancy, Jim, Jake, Karen, and team, CAN Partners and Walden Studio Architects, Donald, John, Ravi, and your team, Harkins Builders, our general contractor, Gary, Rick, Dave, and your team. Absolutely fantastic work. Residential One, who's our property manager, Tony, Lewis, and Lisa. And then Volunteers of America, where we had great support from Rick Della, Dusky Holman, Jim Sense, and now have it with Jennifer Hardy and the team. So those of you who I have not mentioned, thank you for your contributions to make this a success. So it's my pleasure, without any further ado, to introduce our mayor, Mayor Young, and thank you, Mayor Young, for making time. You've been along with this journey with us, and we really appreciate the work that your team has done within the city. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I want to first recognize our great U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen. Okay. Secretary Kenneth Holt, Senator Antonio Hayes, Councilman Eric Costello, Jason Perkins Cohen, the Director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development in back, Russell Sider, who just introduced me, William Whitman, Somerset Development, and I saw Jim Campbell as well. Okay. And Nancy, oh, I didn't see you, Nancy. I asked about you. Jim, didn't I ask about Jim? Where's Jim? Didn't I, Jim? Okay. Thank you to the Volunteers of America, Chesapeake, and Carolinas for choosing Baltimore's historic Lexington Market District as the site for this housing redevelopment. The decision to redevelop Paca House was in response to the city's call for increased investment in affordable housing. We're so glad that the VOACC partners, Somerset Development Company and new community partners saw value in being a part of this $26.8 million renovation. The 92-unit affordable housing development will provide much-needed permanent housing for the homeless and veterans of Baltimore City. In Baltimore, we are fortunate to have a strong veteran affairs network. This location is perfect because it's in close proximity to critical, important local resources serving the homeless and veterans, including the Regional VA Administration, the Baltimore VA Medical Center, and the University of Maryland Medical Center. Residents can also participate in on-site services provided by the VOACC staff. Those services include behavioral health counseling, medical referrals, assisting with food, health and wellness support, literacy, training services, and job preparation. I look forward to your partnership with my city agencies, including the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. I encourage VOACC to continue to work with the City of Baltimore and the Mayor's Office to ensure that the project remains a success. With so many new and exciting projects coming to this area, we're looking forward to working with VOACC for many years to come. Connecting city residents to affordable housing, jobs, and wellness services is what Baltimore City is all about. These are my top priorities of my administration as we continue to build Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's my pleasure to introduce U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen. I was down on the Hill last week. Volunteers America has a Hill Day every year, and we have our colleagues from across the country come in and talk about different topics involved with human services, as well as this past week was really relating to our policy, our legislators, around the importance of affordable housing and low-income housing. And I'm pleased to say that we had a chance to visit with the senator's staff, and he's a strong advocate and staunch supporter of low-income housing tax credits. Actually, he's a sponsor on a bill that's going around right now to help bolster that and help us get more funding and more credits out to us so we can do more of this work. And thank you, Senator, for all the extra work you're doing. And one of the things on the Hill last week was around the HUD budget, Department of Housing and Urban Development budget. And I can tell you that the Senator's office, as well as our local offices here, in our congressional offices here in the state of Maryland, are all on making sure we get the appropriate funding, both capital as well as the service funding. So thank you, Senator, for being here today.
Thank you, Russell. Well, thank you, Russell, and thank you and your team for really bringing us to this day. And it was good to hear from your team on Capitol Hill, where the issues that bring us together today are front and center and being debated. So I appreciate your input and the input from so many others on these issues. And I must say, I am really pleased right now to be out of Washington, D.C. and off of Capitol Hill with you for a special occasion like this. The new, improved, and expanded Paca House that serves people who have served us and our country in the military, and others who have found themselves homeless and now will have a permanent home here. I want to thank the mayor for his efforts on so many projects here in the city. We've worked together, and to Antonio Hayes, Senator, thank you for taking a little time off from Annapolis. I know you're very busy there. Councilmember Costello and I were just together at Baltimore Station, which is another organization that serves veterans not on a permanent basis, but people who have been down and out and trying to get them back on their feet. And I want to thank him. And Secretary Holt, thank you and your team, as well as all the city folks. And this is something that has come together with the leadership of VOAC. I'm going to call it VOAC instead of VOACC, okay? And your team. But I also want to salute the private sector partners, Somerset Development, new community partners, and this is really the coming together of the public sector and the private sector and the nonprofit sector in order to support our veterans. And thanks to all the folks from the Department of Veterans Affairs for what you're doing. I think we all agree that we have a special responsibility as a city, as a community, a country, to serve those who have sacrificed and served our country in uniform. And a lot of these men and women, when they leave active duty and come back home, struggle to get into the workforce, and many of them find themselves disconnected, so disconnected that many become homeless. And we have a duty to make sure that we address those issues and make sure we find a permanent home for our veterans. And that is what Paca House is all about, helping them and others in our community who have become down and out, disconnected, get back on their feet in a permanent place to call home. And it is a coming together. As you said, it takes an army or a village. Just on the federal financing side, you were very creative. You put together the low-income housing tax credits together with project-based Section 8, together with the Capital Magnet Fund. So that's creative financing, and that's just the federal side. Then you have, of course, the state side, the city side, and the private side, and some nonprofit grants as well. Stitching all that together is what makes this work. And I just want to salute everybody. I know it's been a long road in terms of the number of years, but it was well worth it as we gather here today. I will say that there have been a number of proposals on Capitol Hill, and Russell was there, he knows this, to cut back on things like Section 8 housing, as well as some of the other important affordable housing programs at the federal level. I'm also pleased to report that on a bipartisan basis on the Hill, we have fought back against that. I serve on the Appropriations Committee that deals with the funding, and the Banking Committee that does housing policy issues. And so far, we've had a united front in trying to preserve these important investments. And finally, I would just note what everyone in this community knows, which is a home is more than just the bricks and mortar. It is a place where people can feel safe and secure, and really becomes the hub of your life. Right? I mean, it's the hub of the spokes that connect you to the rest of your life, and that is why the wraparound services that are provided are so important. And I just want to emphasize that. I think everybody who's worked in this area recognizes that having that access to financial literacy programs, healthcare screening programs, having someone here who can refer and connect people to services that are not provided here as a guide, and of course the workforce development piece. These are all essential components, and the Supporting Services for Veterans Families program has been an important program that we've been supporting in that effort, along with the VASH vouchers and other elements that help put this together. But this is a great celebration, and it's good to be part of a good news story today, and the sun is shining, and I just want to thank all of you for being part of what brought us here today. So congratulations, and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator, and it's again my pleasure to have Secretary Ken Holt here from the Secretary of Housing for the state of Maryland, who's been way behind a lot of the growth and low-income housing tax credits here in the state of Maryland, supporting projects from all over the state, and just thank you again for your team and your support.
Thank you. I bring greetings from Governor Hogan and Lieutenant Governor Rutherford. My compliments to each and every one of you for a job well done. I encourage our good senator to bring more of those vouchers home here. We can use them. We'll build as much permanent supportive housing as is needed. We need rental support, though, to make it work. Our mission in the state of Maryland, supported by bipartisan way, all of our delegates and senators, both in the state and the federal arena, is to reduce homelessness. In Montgomery County, they have basically reduced it to net zero. They've invested a tremendous amount of money and really have established a template from which our state initiatives are flowing. In the last 3 years, FY17 to 19, we have reduced homelessness by about 10% across the state in the 4 cohorts: chronically homeless, women with children, youth homelessness, and veterans homeless. And I think one of the important signature efforts by Governor Hogan and the administration has been at Perry Point, where we financed to the extent of about $24 million the restoration of 75 officers' quarters at Perry Point for homeless veterans. And it's a remarkable location, maybe one of the most beautiful locations in the state, overlooking the Susquehanna and the head of the Chesapeake Bay. This commitment is really not just sort of local in Baltimore, but it's very much statewide. The dominant homeless population, however, exists in the city, and we are pleased to support the House of Freedom in East Baltimore, where they're constructing a facility for 90 domestically abused women and their children. We've worked closely with Episcopal Housing, with the Weinberg Foundation, and I think the sum total of the effort is really bringing about the right kind and necessary change. One interesting thing that we're working on, last year we had the first homeless youth conference ever held in the state, and we had over 300 people attend. We're now building an app that will enable homeless youth to connect to counseling services as well as host homes. And so we're working in concert with each and every one of you. We are making headway, and you know, it's sort of a two-pronged solution. One is the money and technical expertise, and that's where our 9% and our 4% credits and rental housing works and our rental housing programs weigh in. But the other is the commitment of organization that, like Volunteers of America, that really from their heart and soul are dedicated to making a difference in people's lives. So I'm happy to be part of that team, and I express my deep appreciation to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Senator Antonio Hayes, the 40th District. I met him when he was a delegate in the 40th District, and we met here actually just to take a tour, but he's been a great supporter. He's been working in Annapolis for us for a number of years now, and want to do more, but thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. I was going to say, Russ, it was just a couple of years ago that I walked through this facility and saw the vision that we celebrate today. And so thank you, Russ, Volunteers for America, Somerset Development, and all of my colleagues in local, state, and federal government that are here. This is an awesome opportunity for West Baltimore and the 40th District. You know, providing homes for our veterans and some of our most vulnerable populations is a part of the puzzle at piecing Baltimore together to make it the opportunity city that it that it is and can be. In this legislative session, we're working on a lot of issues to address some of the other issues. Many of you all know I'm one of the largest champions in Annapolis to deal with behavioral health issues. Another one of the obstacles or barriers that sometimes get in the way of our veterans and our homeless to see the opportunity that our city and state could bring to them. This session in Centerville, Holland, you should be well aware of this. There's a struggle going on in our pharmaceutical community between our PBMs and our local pharmacists. And what is really important, especially to the homeless population, is that they get access to the needed pharmaceuticals that they need in order to survive. And so this legislative session, one of the things that the PBMs are trying to block local homegrown pharmacists here in our state from offering some of the drugs that address diseases like HIV and AIDS and other things. And so we're working to make sure we declassify that as a specialty drug to make it more affordable and more accessible in so many of our communities. The other thing that we're working on, as I said, behavioral health is a big issue to me, especially around substance abuse. We talk about the 300 or so lives that we lost to gun violence here in the city, but last year we lost close to 1,000 individuals due to overdose here just in the city of Baltimore. And those are mothers, fathers, daughters, brothers, cousins, uncles of so many Baltimoreans and so many in the state. And so we're working, really, really hard that we have greater access not only to our emergency rooms, and we're lucky here in this community to have access to one of the greatest health institutions in this country out of the University of Maryland. But it's all of these barriers that sometimes make it very difficult from the least of these and the most vulnerable in our communities to be successful. And so I just, again, wanted to applaud the work that Volunteers of America is doing, along with all of the partners that help bring you guys here today. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to share with me.
Next is Councilmember Eric Costello from the 11th District, and Eric's a unique guy. He's been very supportive of Volunteers of America over time, but I mean that in a good way, and that Eric has done so much for Volunteers of America, so much for this community in really moving forward with visions like this to make it, and his support has been really priceless. So Eric, thank you for everything, and appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Russ. That's about the nicest thing anyone's going to say about me all year, so I really do appreciate it. I want to take a moment to highlight some of the incredible things that are happening on downtown's west side. I know I'm a bit off script here, but Mayor Jack Young's very aware of this because he's been spending a lot of his time in office pushing these things. Look at the Drovers Bank redevelopment, Lexington Market redevelopment across the street, what VOAC and Somerset and partners have been able to deliver here, the expansion of the University of Maryland Medical Center, the downtown campus. We've got some pretty incredible things. You'll be hearing some really amazing news about the super block, or what we used to refer to as the super block. So things are really moving in the right direction, and unfortunately that doesn't get the attention that it should get. Well over $500 million in economic development on downtown's west side. Very grateful to Secretary Holt, and especially my good friend, State Senator Antonio Hayes. Projects like this certainly do not work without their leadership and without their staunch support. But to be here today, to talk about having 92 units modernized, to have a significant expansion in terms of the human services that are provided to the residents here, a workforce development program, and to really have that focus on veterans. As Senator Van Hollen said just about an hour ago, we were at Baltimore Station, who provides incredible services to our veteran community. And I know that they've worked very closely with Paca House over the years. It's really exciting to be here. I want to close out with one thing. I want to specifically thank Russ from VOAC, Nancy, Jim, and Bill from Somerset. Every single time, make no mistake about this, every single time that Baltimore City asks these two groups to step up, they step up. And when they're done stepping up and they're done delivering, they ask what more can they do. Whether it's the RRC Center on the east side, whether it's Linden Park Apartments, whether it's taking the Union Hall and going way outside of the scope of what you all had to do and create a community center in Central West Baltimore. Every single time we ask you all to do something, you are the first ones in line. You step up to the plate, and when you finish it, after you've done the job perfectly, you ask what else can we do to help Baltimore City. So these two groups, VOAC and Somerset, are really examples of the type of partners that are helping to drive the city forward. So Russ, Nancy, Bill, I don't know where Jim is. Jim, sorry, didn't see you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done to invest in our city and help move our city forward in a thoughtful way.
So during the visioning process, we realized that Paca House was in central Baltimore, and we were 2 blocks away from the VA Medical Center. And it made total sense for the folks who were living here at the time, that are living here now, to make this a veteran-preferred property. So our vision came true, but we needed the help of the U.S. Veterans Administration and the local folks. Chris Booster is the Chief Social Work Service from the VA Medical Health Care System. They're a great partner to work with. They bring VASH to the table, they bring their expertise, their technical expertise, and they bring the support service from 2 blocks away to the veterans living here. So Chris, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on this glorious day, not just because of the weather, but because of what we're doing here today. We're improving the lives of our veterans and the citizens of Baltimore. The VA Maryland healthcare system serves about 55,000 veterans, and the most vulnerable of those are our homeless veterans. Over the years, we have made great strides in reducing veteran homelessness. We have been able to permanently house over 1,200 veterans using our HUD vouchers. And this comes about because of wonderful partnerships that we have with the state, with our federal partners, with the city, and also with private entities and local citizens who are all dedicated to the idea that people deserve housing and that they are healthier when they are housed. We know our veterans live longer when they are housed. They live healthier when they're housed. It costs less to care for them when they are housed. It just makes sense all the way around. There's no reason why we shouldn't do projects like this and expand upon it. We have wonderful partners out there who help our veterans who are just coming in off the street, like Baltimore Station, which I've heard mentioned a couple of times. But we know that about 75% of those veterans who go through someplace like Baltimore Station or McVet are going to need some assistance. They're going to need help getting out of there and getting into permanent housing. So it's projects like that that make this possible. Over the last 5 years, we've been able to reduce veteran homelessness in this city by 31%. That's outstanding. VA really leads the way in reducing veteran homelessness. It's one of those populations that we're able to make the greatest impact on, and it's because of the support of everybody who's in this room and surrounding me on my right and left. I asked my staff who work intimately with our veterans who are living here, what does this mean to them? And they said that this means the life to our veterans, that this is giving them the improvement. This is where they want to be. This makes their dreams possible. As was said, our hospital is only 2 blocks over, so we were able to reach out to our veterans, provide those services that are needed, case management, health care, mental health services. So it's a beautiful partnership that we have. We're very excited to be a part of this, and thank you for having us here on this day. What a wonderful celebration.
right, as we're wrapping up, I did not mention Secretary Owings, George Owings from the State of Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs, but he was a huge supporter. His team was very involved in this. He could not be here today, but I wanted to recognize his office's efforts in helping us get to this point today. So if you wouldn't mind telling the Secretary our regards and thank you. We appreciate it. All right, so we're coming to the end, and I know our folks up here need to skedaddle, so we're going to take a quick minute, and then I'm going to have Bill Whitman come up here and kind of close us off. You're invited. We have to take a tour after this, and then if we don't see you at the tour, on April 30th, we'd love to have you at the City Club, which is here, Center Club, excuse me, which is here in Baltimore, on April 30th from 6 to 9 to join us and hear more about Volunteers America and be part of our celebration of the work we do here in Baltimore. So thank you all for being here, and I know they need to leave, and ask Bill to come up.
Thank you, Russ. I'll be very brief. I started to make a list of all the individuals who worked on this project, who made it possible. Day to day, I wanted to thank everybody and quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. The list is just way too long. But I want to say that of the sources of financing that were mentioned before, there are 15 sources of financing that went into making this project work, which is why it took so long. Knitting that fabric together just takes a lot of time, and literally hundreds of people. And I'm sorry that so many of them couldn't be here today, but that's what it takes. I look forward to the day when we can find a simpler way, a less expensive way of creating affordable housing, so that we can get it done faster, cheaper, and serve so many people who are still paying too much for housing or going without housing altogether. Two individuals in particular I want to thank are my partner Nancy Huff and Jim Campbell. Without their support and all the people who at Somerset and VOAC and all the other organizations who are on the phone every day stitching together this fabric. The lawyers, anyway, enough said for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. We're so proud and we're so thankful. Thank you very much.
3, 2, 1.